In this video, we're gonna cover deflection radius. Deflection radius is really important because a lot of times when people are gaining or thrusting at someone, they're not taking this into account. So if his arm is just fully extended in front of him and he has it to the side, and what we're talking about on deflection radius is like how thick and tapered the sword is. The more and quickly it tapers, the more deflection radius it has. If both of our swords are completely straight in front of us, and if we have equal swords, then when we go forward, the tip is gonna stay pretty equal, right? The more deflection radius we have, like my sword is rather thick, now if I go forward, that's more, it's gonna push his sword to the side. It's gonna deflect it to the side like two triangles going into one another. This is really important when gaining the weapon and thrusting towards your opponent because you need to take into consideration the deflection radius. If his sword is extended and say he's more over here and I am aiming for the face and I go to thrust, the deeper I get down his sword, the more my sword is gonna go to the side. This is important because you need to compensate for this. So if I wanna stab him, say in his nose, then right now what would happen is the deflection radius would push me outside of his face the further I get down his blade. So to compensate for that, instead of aiming at his nose, I would aim at his ear or his eye, because now it's going to push my sword into him. This is also good because you want to be adjusting from your target, aiming slightly to the side, because a lot of times you're gonna have the deflection radius and they're gonna parry. So now when he parries to the inside, he's gonna also push me into the target. So the deflection radius on both of our swords is gonna affect how far your sword is pushed to the side. Plus, when they parry, that's gonna amplify this. So it's really important to pay attention to how much of a deflection radius their sword and how much your sword has, because sometimes that can be why people are missing. I've seen a lot of people throw thrusts and not know why they're missing, and it's because they're aiming straight at their target and the swords are deflecting it to the side. On top of that, if he extends his sword out, we also have the guards in the equation. So now when we look at it as if we're equal, right? And all I need to do is have his sword slightly offline, because when I come forward, now my sword's gonna get pushed into him and his sword's gonna get pushed to the side. Now, when we add in these parts of our sword, that also is gonna add to how it's getting deflected to the side. A guard like his, that's a 3-ring swept and has this knuckle bow, adds immensely to this deflection, especially if I'm right here, it deflects me straight away from his body. This is one reason why I like this 3-ring rapier so much, because everything, go ahead and switch me. Everything on this rapier is designed perfectly to deflect it away from you. So if his sword is here, and if we're facing the camera a bit more, then it's going to deflect it up and out away from me. If he attacks here, it will also deflect it away from me. And if he attacks on this side, it deflects it away from me. Versus this sword, if I go forward, it's more deflecting it into the opponent. Here it deflects to the side a little bit, but not nearly as much if you have these outside parts that will deflect it to the side. And a cup hilt that's a full circle, a lot of times will just deflect it completely straight. So when you're getting your sword too, you want to think about how much of a deflection radius do you want on your guard and on your blade, which is one reason why I actually like the knuckle bows on most of my sword, because it adds so much deflection radius, especially if he's in guard and I'm doing any sort of palm up thrust and I'm capturing here, it's deflecting it all the way to the outside away from my body when I'm attacking.